This ain't right. I can never get these sides even. Maybe, okay, that's it right there. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Sharice, and over on this corner of the internet, we are living well, embracing authenticity and balancing grief, life, and style. In today's video, we're gonna do a little get ready with me, a little chit chat about healing. This is your warning. We're gonna talk about a little grief and relationships and how all those things coincide with each other. Primarily, we're gonna be talking about a little grief today while I get ready. You can see how I did and refreshed my hair after 2.5, 3 weeks. It's probably been longer than that. Make sure, if you haven't yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button and like, comment, and share the video if you are interested in seeing more content from me. I'm also open to content ideas, topics, chats, questions, or whatever around the things that I like to talk about in this channel. Let's get into it. So of course, I've been in Sephora. I saw this new Milk Hydro Grip Gel Tint, and I know it's crazy. I just bought a skin tint. I love makeup. What can I say? I'm pretty good at shade matching myself online. I got the shade, what is it, shade 12. It is definitely my summer color. I wore it yesterday. I put in some makeup on when I was getting ready to like do something with myself. It wears very nicely. Done my brows, concealed what I got going on under here. This is definitely my summer color because I can tan a little darker than what this will show up. I really haven't been listening to a lot of music lately. I have been replacing some of the music that I would normally listen to with, I mean, this is still a good match. I don't know if you can see it. It's just me but bronze. Been not feeling the best mentally. I know he was like, girl, you just went to Atlanta, all that stuff. Yeah, I needed it. I need all the time I can get with my friends. It's a fight, really. Just because you like see something for like 2 or 3 days and somebody's sharing something, that doesn't mean that that's the reality. It's not. Life is hard, not just for me, for everybody. Where's my concealer? Really like the coverage of that gel tint. Just haven't been like feeling the best, which is one reason why I've been monitoring what I've been listening to. I saw this post online, and it says, your 30s will teach you something wild. Healing isn't about bubble baths, vacations, or treating yourself. It's about facing yourself. And that's the part no one talks about. And I think this is, of course, one of my favorite words of the season. Community comes in. We have to talk about these things. I don't even know at this point what I did in my 20s. Honestly, I just feel like my 20s were kind of like a waste. I'm not gonna say a waste, it's just like, I literally was a dandelion blowing through the wind. And at some point, I would say around maybe 25 or 26, I started a very serious spiritual walk. And that led into me doing some very intense therapy, which was great for me, especially at the time. It gave me a really good foundation. Then I turned 30. When I turned 30, I was in a relationship. Not that I didn't have any business being in it. It was just, I can't continue to date men that's got so much trauma and not doing the work. I'm doing it. Why are you not doing the work? And we'll touch on that also in this conversation. To your 30s. Last May, I had talked about, I meant to put my blush on first because I wanted to try like that heavy blush. Because I do have blush blindness. We've talked about this. I got one of the new colors from Danessa Myricks, Yummy Skin in Spice Latte. I wanted the darker one because I just love a brownie terracotta cheek that's just like a natural bronze contour look. And you can just build it, I'm sure. Obviously, these are my favorite shades of blush. Your 30s will teach you something wild. And I think for me, and I'm sure there are people that can resonate with this, at some point in my 30s, I had a really good job. I started going on vacations, focusing on self-care. All those things are great. But one thing that I think we kind of avoid when we talk about self-care is facing yourself. The reasons why you may be hyper-focused on doing those things, and they can coexist at once. I just think we just focus on the service or the entity or the place or the thing more than what goes on internally, and it kind of takes a back seat. And then it kind of seemingly just becomes like this vanity-filled thing rather than addressing what's going on internally. Or at least that's kind of how I feel what has been happening to me, because I'm self-care queen. I, in a sense, mostly more than a sense, because they're not my kids. I have nieces and nephews, so I don't know what it takes or the actual totality of what it means to be a parent and have self-care time. I'm sure it means a lot because it means a lot to me, and I'm not a parent. I'm just a very present caregiver. Life changes in the last few months of moving, losing my job, ending a relationship, dealing with some grief that I have not been able to have the opportunity to do so when my brother first passed. I'm just now like getting into a real healing process, and some of those things have been happening at once. I talked about this on a previous video. Yesterday I was having one of those days to where grief and then my thoughts were really like consuming me like very heavily, which is why my tear ducts look the way that they do. I have tried all of those things and actively still participate in some of those things, and they in and of itself aren't the conduits of healing, but they aren't the source of healing. And it actually took me sitting in my car, breaking down, and then contacting my friends that y'all have heard in the last video. Actually like have some actual healing stuff that I have to get up and out of my body, and a lot of it via word of mouth and not coming in agreement with some things, and all those things. They're a form of escapism. I know this because I've done it only with my oiling. This is the KAT molecular hair oil. Of course the unit would come on. I don't know how much of this is I'm supposed to use, but I'm about to flat iron my hair. The avenue of self-care has ended up in the last few years is avoidance of facing yourself. There's nothing wrong with that, because I myself, I love a vacation, I love a facial, I love a manicure, I love, honestly, you know, I just love shopping and I love taking care of myself. I like keeping up with myself. I'm kept. But when we put a lot of emphasis on those things versus dealing with a lot of internal things, just focusing on the external, for me, I definitely started the healing journey. I started it in my late 20s, and it definitely evolved into something else in my 30s, especially as not even that I got older, but as I found myself in relationships that went nowhere, or relationships that were wasting my time. I've only been in 2 relationships so far in my 30s. And for me, a year was enough time for me to know if you're wasting my time. Sorry. I'm closer to 40 than I am to 30. I can't give you more than that. Anyways, that's not what this portion of the video is about, because we're gonna get into that. I find that more women, and this is statistically proven, you can look it up yourself, more women do internal and self-care and self-help work and therapy than men. Not making that up. I think that as I've gotten more into my 30s, after relationships and career changes and jobs and different cities, that none of that stuff is actually healing. It's just things that I'm doing. What happens to be a part of the journey, not necessarily healing. The healing where it comes with not even just therapy, but spiritual. Part of what's been healing for me, especially in the last few weeks, asking myself difficult questions. Part of my healing journey, having to deal with people hurt. Obviously the passing of my brother, because there have been some things that have transpired that kind of interrupted my own grieving for honestly the first 2 years, including constant work. People think that you get 2 weeks for bereavement and that is it. I am year 4 in, almost at 4 full years, at some days in the beginning and in the thick of grief, which just goes to tell you that grief doesn't look like one thing for one specific person. It's very different. I have found myself in more of a spiritually led type counseling versus the therapy that I've previously done, because a lot of the therapy that I started to do in the beginning when my brother passed, it was really focused on family trauma and how to balance living and moving forward and not suffocating with angst and those feelings that arise, versus actually dealing with a lot of issues that I had with my brother when it came to not being able to see him, speak to him, not saying goodbye. A lot of those things that I didn't even know were really holding me back and not really having that kind of closure. Some of my therapy sessions, we definitely would touch on my brother very often, but it would just more questions, but then I would probably be going through something else at the time, and that was just where I chose to shift the focus. When I get to this front part, I like to curl it away from my face, like so, kind of like a flip. My healing journey for my brother, you see, are those going the same direction? I don't know, y'all. Some of the questions that we were guiding me to answer was actually figuring out where or who I was angry at. For me, if I was angry at my brother or if I was angry with God. And it was just like when I was asked a question, I was just like, I don't even know if I'm angry with my brother. I think I'm angry with God. I've known that, and I think that I have acknowledged that, but not actually do more than work through that thought process of why I'm angry with God. Like the following questions and the following of professionals guiding me through what those emotions are and telling me to just let go of the anger that I was holding on. What could be some things that I'm actually mad with my brother about, other than just leaving? And for me, a lot of that was just that it was just me and him. And my feelings of being alone, just feeling like abandoned in everything, especially in the last year, which I've already talked about that before. And a lot of this is I've already talked about. It's just constant recognition and unlearning. And that's just part of the healing, is just keep attaching that thing until you pull the root out of it. A lot of these things happen around the same time, and if they didn't happen around the same time, they have something to do with it. And for me, like my Venn diagram geographically has a location when all these things have changed, pinpoints to a moment in my timeline, like a Marvel timeline, that all these things happened. And one of the things that I mentioned, I was just like, if this one thing didn't happen, none of these other things would have happened. A lot of that is guilt I don't know if that's survivor's guilt. I'm not sure what that is. But it's just like, I don't know what the timeline could be because I don't know what that would have looked like. Other questions that were asked was actually trying to give me the opportunity internally and in my imagination to say goodbye. And I struggled with that. I posted something on TikTok before I met with them, and my old therapist saw the video I posted and she ended up texting me. I'll share some of what she said in the message that she sent me, which I think will be very beneficial for anybody that is struggling, not even just with grief, but with processing some kind of severe emotion or trauma. It also made me feel kind of good because especially her knowing my foundation and my background and me being able to even verbally process a lot of my feelings and emotion. And going back to what we were dealing with during our, I guess you could say, session, identifying a lot of what I was going through at the time and kind of processing through all of that. And I know it's just not for me, but for like a lot of other people, it's just not just one thing that they're dealing with. Life is just not linear. It's multi-dimensional and things can be happening simultaneously at the same time, which has kind of been the case for me the last several years. Like a lot of the things that I'm processing with and dealing with, being redundant, they have something to do with each other or they're interconnected in some kind of way.
More unique situations I think that come up for my sisters, because my sisters, I feel like when I talk to my brothers and sisters, they have unique issues, especially the sisters in Christ. For example, interesting, I'm having a conversation with one sister recently and she's like, Todd, it's like, yo, as I get closer to Christ and as I advance and, you know, build my life with God, I feel like less men become qualified. I feel like my pool of men just shrink that I can actually be with. Is it a reality that as a woman grows her relationship with Christ genuinely, authentically, and closely, is it true that she now has less men and men of God that she actually can genuinely connect with because she only wants to connect with a man on her level?
Yeah.
I sent that clip to one of my friend groups, like in my messages, and the three of us, we've been friends for years. And I was so crazy, and I was just, and we were talking about, I think she was talking about that she had went on a date or something. And tying into healing, I want to add something in that I kind of left out when it came to like vacations and healing and all that. When I was not able to do it last year because I couldn't take off of work in March for my brother's birthday. And the month that he passed, September, I was packing up and moving. So I just wasn't able to do it at all last year. But I had said when he had passed, you know what? When the dates come by, when he has transitioned or when his birthday, I just don't want to be here. I'm going to go on vacation. And I did that. I had been to Miami, Costa Rica, Belize, El Salvador on his anniversaries and his birthday. And I had been met by some very supernatural things on several of those, if not all of those trips. It's just like kind of a reminder to me, and it should have been that I wasn't alone. But you know, if you're hurt, you're hurt. You're not going to see things clearly. In the moment that I did recognize that a lot of those things were supernatural, where was I? I was in Belize and I had went snorkeling, and somehow I just happened to look down and there was like this pod. I'm not sure what the groups of dolphins are called. I happened to look down and there were like 4 dolphins that were swimming not even 10 feet away from me. It was the most magical thing. And when I went to go find the guide, and he was just like, there's nothing there. He's like, if you saw the dolphins, that was crazy that happened to you. That never happens. They never come this close up to the reef. Because Belize has, I think now the longest living coral reef, because the coral reef in Australia is being bleached naturally. It's a natural process that happens. But anyways, like I was actively involved in like escapism, trying to avoid healing during those times. But I think a lot of what I'm dealing with now is I was missing a lot of that. So like even for myself now, I think I have been to my brother's cemetery plot maybe once or twice. I'm working up the courage of going to visit. And I know it's going to be a lot because I'm answering and being very real with myself and doing some healing, all of that. And I think even with having just the community of people that I have around me at this time is not that I'm gonna not be emotional when I think about him, or that I'll just not be emotional about any of it. I'm a human, and we were in the same womb. We have the same bloodline. We're siblings. We grew up together. I'm going to be upset. I'm going to be hurt, but I know how to channel and deal with that part of the healing rather than just holding it in. And to answer what I had just shared in that clip, because that's a good way to swallow all that down. Nothing like talking about a man. I think that there's a lot of escapism going on. We are focusing so much on self-care and being kept, and honestly doing things for appearances that we're decaying on the inside. That is the point of all of this, is you can do whatever to look pretty on the outside, look handsome, do all that stuff. But in the interim, it's not attractive and it's not sustainable for yourself or for any other relationship when you're not dealing internally with whatever healing has to take place. Whether that's from childhood trauma, some kind of abuse, bad relationships, divorce, anything that could have happened. I really did that. And it didn't even take that long. I think for me, with the healing journey, and if you've heard that podcast, and I'll link it below, Pastor Mitchell alluded to it or said it, and it could not have been more perfect of where I am right now. It is actually learning to both live and suffer well. And in order to do that, you have to be in a constant process of healing, whether you're by yourself or if you're in a relationship or whatever that looks like for you. There's always some form of healing going on. Where I am right now, it is both calm and chaotic, in a spot not even of comfortability, but of actual favor, but also pain, because wrestling internally with a lot of things, but also the favor in being put in a place to where I don't have a lot of responsibility just taken off of me. I cannot by any means ignore that, because the amount of stress that was attached to me doing all of those things several months ago, I was buried. So this is great favor, but now I've had that weight lifted off, and now I'm having to shift to focus on dealing with the pain and the healing. That is where I am, doing a little bit of healing. But yeah, it's just like, again, of the importance of having a good, strong community around you that's not even going to hold you accountable, but that can help aid you in whatever it is you're healing from. And hopefully you're able to help each other. But hopefully you found this conversation enlightening and helpful, especially if you're grieving or in transitional, if you're 30-something and actually finding out that none of these things are actually involve healing. It actually has to be done internally, and then it'll show externally. Hopefully you found this helpful. I will put another video at the end of the screen for you to watch if you haven't seen it yet. And I will see you guys in the next one.